Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines, joined as always by Kate and Sean. Happy Friday, guys.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And what a week it has been. We've got a lot to talk about. Kate, we missed you last week. Sean and I held the fort here, but I know it's already been a week that you've been back, but we would love to hear a little bit about ETH Denver and just how things went there.
I think my biggest takeaway is that as weird as I think Ethereum folks are, Bitcoiners might be even weirder, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people are actually surprised that you can do DeFi on Bitcoin. They still think of it as this monolith that's, not easily changeable. You can't really do much on it. So having those conversations and seeing people, very pleasantly surprised was super fun. We got a lot of sneaky love for leather. They love leather. And then just getting to talk about granite was really fun too. And this whole concept of lending out your Bitcoin. So that was really cool. And then I got to meet a lot of the Stacks team. They're phenomenal. And then a lot of folks with building within Stacks as well. It's really fun to be able to meet people that you engage with every day online. And then you meet each other and you're like, oh, you look different. But it just makes, working together so much easier when you have that in-person relationship. And then lastly, I got to see Rena in action. She's an absolute beast. She's up on panels and chatting with everyone all the time. And so that was really inspiring to just see her in action and a lot of fun. So I'm excited for Bitcoin Vegas, I think.
Yeah, definitely excited for Vegas. You were also doing a lot of on-the-street interviews with people too, right?
Absolutely. So we were kind of on the ground talking to people and we did some street style interviews, think all gas, no brakes style. So we're going to be sharing out those interviews over the weekend and everything. They were super fun and people love doing them. There was a lot of different opinions. A lot of people prefer Bitcoin to Ethereum, but yeah, we'll share those out. They're pretty funny.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things. I was watching one of the clips and I was surprised by how many people at an Ethereum conference were talking about how much they love Bitcoin. It's pretty interesting.
It's the mother.
It is. Yeah. Maybe next. Rena's definitely great on her panels. I've seen a lot of clips from that already as well. But maybe next year you'll have to get on some panels.
We'll see. These are good practice. Talking with you guys and everyone on different spaces. They're really so helpful, and it helps you formulate your opinion too, and what you believe and what excites you, and so I love doing these.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Sean, let me throw it over to you to talk about the Leather Lounge that happened this week with the folks at Stacking DAO. We had the advisor and Lior on, and that was a very relevant and very good show.
Yeah, very timely too. The week before is when the SBTC cap was lifted and up to 3,000 SBTC was pegged in less than 24 hours. So the conversation has really been dominant around putting your Bitcoin to work and this injection of liquidity across all the apps, the dApps in the ecosystem. So this was a good chance to talk to really niche down into Stacking DAO with, like you said, Lior and the advisor. So yeah, we talked about the different flavors of, Bitcoin risk, lending, staking on the spectrum of what's the safest thing you can do to what's the riskiest risk reward thing you can do. So yeah, it was a great show. Toward the end, we opened it up a little bit and asked the advisor just kind of some non-Bitcoin questions about what he's into in the side, what kind of books he's into. So it was kind of fun when you get these little chances to talk with a lot of the kind of to what you were saying, Kate, when you get to just have more IRL or real non-work conversations with people.
Yeah, totally.
It can really go a long way. So I think it's something that I want to do a little bit more of on the lounge is it's called the Leather Lounge, right? Can't be business all the time. So yeah, it was a great conversation that was very stacked about, putting your Bitcoin to work and what is best, like what are the best tools available for anyone depending on their risk reward tolerance. So it was a great mix. Yeah.
I think they also just announced they have over 70 million stacks being put to work right now, which is huge. That's so fun. Yeah. Big numbers.
That's a lot. And a big chunk of that is Manib
Manib,
that
yeah.
announced that he had put a lot into stacking DAO.
Yeah,
And,
was it 10 million?
I actually
10 million.
I actually put some in as well, but certainly not a big portion compared to Manib or compared to the overall pie. But yeah, I switched to stacking DAO recently. I was doing like native stacking forever, and I switched to stacking DAO because they do they have the option of getting like your yield paid in SBTC instead of like native BTC, which is pretty cool. So been enjoying that for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'll jump over to their website real quick. So to your point, with the liquid stacking, there's an advantage because since it's liquid, you can pull it out anytime. And previously, you were locked into a 2-week cycle, right? Roughly 2 weeks. So they have like 3 different kinds of products. One, liquid stacking with an STX yield, one with SBTC yield, and then just the native stacking as before. So right now, like the APYs are around 9.94%, 9.65 for the SBTC yield. So it's a great tool for everyone who's just like sitting on a bag of stacks and who wants to put it to work.
Yeah, and they are now the only, I think, native stacking pool that is 0 fees.
Right.
But you are paying for, in some ways, the transaction fees because they need to distribute the Bitcoin to, the people that are stacking. So there is some sort of like fee-ish, but, they're not taking an additional fee. They're just transaction fees. But that's kind of one of the benefits of getting your rewards in SBTC instead. That's kind of one of the main reasons that I switched, was that, you're not having to pay those transaction fees like you would on the native, L1. So,
it makes so much sense. Yeah. And
yeah.
I think there's so much that you can do with SBTC before you have to convert it back to BTC, right? So I think every like option has its own like benefit to it, right? But now that SBTC is here, I want to stack those sats.
Yeah, I mean, we had a post go out on Granite this morning that was like, I will never have enough SBTC is the new I will never have enough BTC. And that's kind of how it feels right now. So yeah. Let's stack SBTC. That sounds great.
I think before we get into the show, we have one more congrats in order to Brandon. So about a year ago, the Taproot Wizards team posted a giveaway on socials. And for every day, this man has been in the trenches commenting. The giveaway was last person to comment on this post gets a Taproot Wizard. And Brandon achieved it. And so finally, yesterday, they closed it. You were the last man standing, and huge congrats. That's super exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm still kind of in disbelief that it happened. 24 hours, the past 24 hours has been crazy. So many people like tagging me in different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a year ago, when Udi posted it, Udi is a really great marketer. He's also a really great internet troll. So I think a lot of people, like when they saw him post that, and me too, in a lot of senses, like didn't really believe that he was serious, that, the last person, to post is actually going to get one. So I kind of just wanted to like call his bluff a little bit, and I just started replying every day. And at first I just started like counting up, and then I think like maybe around like halfway into it, I switched to providing a random daily cat fact. So every day we were, together learning more cat facts, and I feel like I actually learned a lot about cats that I didn't know before. But yeah, it's been a year, which is pretty insane. And yeah, he closed off replies to that post, and yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know what wizard I'm getting yet. It's sort of an IOU, but yeah, it's pretty incredible. So thank you, Udi. Thank you to the wizards. It's been a long time coming, I guess.
Yeah, it shows the dedication and patience of a true Bitcoiner. Well done, man. That's great.
Yeah. I was dollar cost averaging every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was happening.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, so much to talk about this week. Obviously, the Bitcoin reserve is the big story. We're going to get to that at the end. Let's first talk about our public company reserve news. Just a couple companies to highlight again. Metaplanet in Japan, public-based company, has acquired 497 Bitcoin. They now hold 2,391 BTC. Fold has acquired 475 Bitcoin, and now they hold 1,485. So quite a big jump from what they had before. And no actual purchase from Strategy this week, which is interesting. I don't really know why, but maybe we'll get one next week. We'll see.
They only buy the top, man. It's too low for them to buy.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. At the beginning of this week, we talked a lot about, the SEC dropping a lot of lawsuits against all these US-based crypto companies. But at the beginning of this week, Kraken was added to the list. So that dismissal includes no admission of wrongdoing by Kraken, no penalties, no changes required to their business. So just another company that was targeted kind of unfairly by the SEC in the last administration, and they're kind of lifting their boots up and not trying to choke out this industry anymore, it seems like. So good news for Kraken, that's for sure.
Have we heard of any companies where their charges are being held? Because all I've seen is charges being dropped.
That's a good point. And there's actually been a couple companies, we didn't talk about it last week, but I think Richard Hart and Hex was one of the ones that people were surprised got dropped, because that was kind of more actual fraud from what it looked like compared to a lot of these other companies that were just oh, maybe the crypto coins that are on our exchange are securities or not. So yeah, that one was really interesting to see that get dropped. Don't really know what happened there, but I'm sure there are some. But I think it's now going to be targeting the actual, maybe outside of that one, it's going to be targeting the actual fraud and the actual crime that's taking place in crypto versus the good actors that are just trying to do the right thing, but they just don't have the legal framework to operate in this space. So hopefully we'll see more of that, less of the good guys getting targeted. But first bit of news. So Congress has launched a bipartisan crypto caucus. This is reporting from Eleanor Terrett, and I'm going to read just a couple bullet points here. So the House Republican Tom Emmer and Democrat Richie Torres are teaming up to launch a congressional crypto caucus, a bipartisan initiative with the goal of advancing crypto-friendly policies in Congress's lower chamber. And the Crypto Caucus will function more as a voting bloc to mobilize support for digital asset legislation that's currently being worked on in the House, including stablecoin and market structure bills. So far, 2 separate bills have provided clarity around the use of stablecoins. Those 2 have been produced in the House, with the industry currently providing input on the bill's various provisions. And then meanwhile, in the upper chamber, Congressman Emmer is eyeing a market for the Genius bill that we talked about a few weeks ago. So lots of things moving. Really great to see that, this is a bipartisan, effort. And there was a note in here also that it's unclear at this point if there will be, even though this is a bipartisan caucus, it's unclear if there's actually enough bipartisan support overall to pass these bills. But we'll have these kind of different initiatives that are hoping to kind of get one of these bills through the doors and get it passed eventually. So we'll have to see, but definitely some progress there.
I listened to a great podcast yesterday from Galaxy Brains with Alex Thorne, and he was interviewing Jake Stravinsky, and they were getting super into the weeds on legislation and what the needs are. And right now, everyone's super excited, obviously, about the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. But there's still so much that needs to be done beyond just, an executive order. So if anyone really wants to go get into the weeds on that one, that's a great interview with Jake Stravinsky on Galaxy Brains.
Does Alex still rap at the beginning of every podcast that they do? Or
no, I haven't heard him do it on here, but man, some of the interviews on what Bitcoin did with Peter McCormack, guys has some skills.
Yeah.
I think he is the best Bitcoin rapper.
Maybe.
That's a niche subset.
300 was just targeted. Shout out to 300.
I know, right? Shots fired.
Yeah, that is a good podcast. I don't listen to it enough, but Galaxy Brains, also just a really wonderful name because it's Galaxy Digital that hosts it. Wonderful name for a podcast. So smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, another really big win for DeFi this week. So it hasn't officially passed yet, but the White House sort of came out with their official support in rescinding the so-called broker DeFi rule. Basically what happened was right before Biden left the administration, kind of in the 11th hour, they basically passed this rule that claimed that basically it would have required DeFi operators to report tax information of their users to the IRS, which is like kind of impossible, right? Like if DeFi doesn't take user information, that's kind of like the whole point, is that it's like a trustless, permissionless kind of system. So in effect, by requiring something like that, it would have, again, like stifled innovation in the US. It would have like stifled this activity. It would have just pushed this activity outside of the US. And that's not a good thing, right? Especially like in this new Trump administration, they're trying to like bring more of this crypto activity into the US. So they want to basically like get rid of this provision. And then crypto czar David Sachs posted on Tuesday their support for this new kind of revision that would kind of get rid of this provision, I guess, or the broker DeFi rule that's happening. So it hasn't happened yet. Seems like it's going to happen pretty soon. Hopefully, it has White House support for it, but certainly good news for DeFi in the US to continue operating, because otherwise it would have kind of just pushed out a lot of activity, because DeFi operators can't really abide by those rules. It's like not really what DeFi is, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes back to like good regulation supposed to help people avoid getting scammed and engaging with, fraudulent companies. But this is just like, again, an attack on open source code, and not good.
Yeah. And it, there's still, obviously to interact with DeFi, you need to go through some sort of onboarding platform. So, for, governments, for law enforcement agencies, right, there are still ways to trace the source of funds and to kind of trace things back to, the source. If I, onboard through Coinbase, right, and then I withdraw my Bitcoin from Coinbase and I go, on like Tornado Cash or something and do something there, like there are ways of, not maybe once it's gone through Tornado Cash, but there are ways of, tracing back my activity to the place that I onboarded. And Coinbase has that customer information. It's not really like by imposing this type of rule, it's not really like, I don't know, fixing much, I guess. There's still ways of like tracing, activity back to, still good news for DeFi.
Yeah, just the fact that we have an administration who understands that we need new rules and regulations for the new world. These are digital assets now. The Banking Secrecy Act does not apply to this, like, because of everything that you just laid out. So more optimism for this space for sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of optimism, a lot to talk about in the past 24 hours with the introduction of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And
there we go.
I have some thoughts about it. I don't really think, like, when we first heard from Trump about this plan, right? It was at Bitcoin Nashville last year. He talked about this strategic Bitcoin stockpile and how they would, basically not sell any of the Bitcoin that they had previously acquired. And that was it. And then, over the past few months, we've had all this buzz in like mainstream Bitcoin media about an actual like Bitcoin reserve where Trump is going to like strategically buy more Bitcoin, right? And the US is going to acquire more Bitcoin. And it felt like the market was like pricing in that possibility of that happening. So I feel like, with the news that had happened yesterday, Trump kind of just did exactly what he said he would do, like almost a year ago, with just not selling what they already had and maybe looking for ways to acquire it more in the future, but it was like a little bit vague. But I think the market was kind of pricing in this like idea that Trump would be buying up a bunch of Bitcoin and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies that were like based in the US. And I think that's why we saw this like big sell-off, yesterday, of like everybody maybe being a little disappointed in the news that like the US wasn't suddenly like buying their bags, and maybe a little frustrated with that.
I think it's really, I really don't understand the pullback in price, because it's incredibly bullish. And honestly, splitting it into Bitcoin strategic reserve and United States digital asset stockpile, it's a great move. And I think it really is a relief to a lot of the Bitcoiners. And clearly Trump has the right smart people around him. I don't know if you saw the clip of him signing it, but when David Sachs was kind of reading what the bill was, Trump is looking at him, and then he goes to sign it. I don't know that Trump like really cares about Bitcoin, you know? I think he cares about getting voted back into office, and clearly, like, he was at the Bitcoin conference, he was pandering to the audience, and he knows that it's going to be good for whatever hit for his campaign and for re-election. But I don't think he's like in the weeds of, I'm a Bitcoiner, and which is fine. He's got other things to focus on. But the silver lining here, the good thing is that clearly he's surrounding himself with really qualified advisors. So I don't know, this, for happening so quickly, I'm kind of really impressed with this.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same observation yesterday when I was watching the clip. He was like almost like playing a little dumb.
Yeah.
With
what am I signing?
This? Oh yeah, did I say that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that was interesting. But I do, like, does it matter? Like, because we have this executive order, like maybe not. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like, Trump has like really surrounded himself with like a pro Bitcoin cabinet, right? We have folks like David Sachs, we have folks like, Howard Lutnick, we have many more that he's kind of surrounded himself with that are very supportive of Bitcoin and of crypto. But the one thing is, like, when Trump was like very careful in his words originally about not calling it a strategic Bitcoin reserve. He called it like the strategic Bitcoin stockpile. And the fact, I think, that even strategic Bitcoin reserve is in the title of this executive order is a pretty big deal. I'll just read like a little bit here. There's a couple things that kind of stood out to me. The one thing is, like, Kate also posted it yesterday, is like, it starts off with Bitcoin is the original cryptocurrency, which is very cool. It talks a little bit about, the core properties of Bitcoin, right? It's, total supply of 21 million coins, never been hacked. It's referred to as digital gold because there is a fixed supply and there's a strategic advantage with the US owning it, which is all really cool. A couple other things that are included in this is, like Sean said, basically they kind of separated it out between sort of a strategic Bitcoin reserve and then this sort of strategic like crypto stockpile. Digital asset stockpile is what they called it. They also talked about the fact that they estimate that there's around 200,000 Bitcoin that the government is currently holding, and they're going to perform an audit of that to sort of verify that they have the keys and they have, control of the assets. If we see, some of the U.S. assets moving around, I know it's tracked on some places like Arkham Intelligence and stuff. Not to be alarmed, I guess. They're maybe just moving stuff around to maybe custody it a little bit more safely. So yeah, it's all been a little interesting, but they did. I'm trying to find the exact place that they mentioned it here, where they talked about. Yeah, the Secretary of the Treasury shall determine strategies for responsible stewardship of the United States digital asset stockpile. And then where is it here? They talked about the option of potentially acquiring more, and they worded it in like a very specific way.
Yeah, if other countries and governments start buying it, then the whole game theory kind of kicks into place. If it's like, well, if your enemies or your competitors are buying it, like, you also need to start buying more.
Yeah, the other interesting game theory thing is, if other countries say, you know what, we actually don't want you to pay with US dollar, we would like you to pay with Bitcoin. That's the next level of like Bitcoin dominance. You can really see that happening.
So this is the provision here that I was thinking of. And this is really where the White House separates kind of Bitcoin from everything else. So the Secretary of Commerce shall develop strategies for acquiring additional government Bitcoin, BTC, provided that such strategies are budget neutral and do not impose incremental costs on United States taxpayers. However, the United States government shall not acquire additional stockpile assets, aka crypto, other than in connection with criminal or civil asset forfeiture proceedings or in satisfaction of any civil money penalty imposed by any agency without executive or legislative action. So basically what this means is that for any non-Bitcoin crypto assets, they're going to hold on to them. They're not going to sell them, but they're not going to be looking into acquiring more of any of those assets. But for Bitcoin, they will potentially look into some strategies for that. but they're not just going to like print money to buy Bitcoin, right? They're not going to like impose incremental costs. They're not going to tax US citizens to acquire more Bitcoin. They're going to find ways of potentially acquiring it in a more neutral way. So that's really interesting. That kind of opens up the doors for the US to potentially acquire more. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see on like what those strategies are going to end up being. But that's potentially very exciting.
Yeah, and you, in the notes for the show, you highlighted this phrase that the secretaries of Treasury and Commerce are authorized to develop budget-neutral strategies for acquiring additional Bitcoin. I have an idea. They could sell all that Cardano and the Solana, and they can use it to buy Bitcoin.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, at the beginning of this week, and I put a note in here for us to talk about this. At the beginning of this week, tweeted out on his he didn't tweet it out. He posted on his Truth Social that, he said the US crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by Biden, which is why my executive order, to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, and Cardano, and I will make sure the US, is the crypto capital of the world. And it seems like a lot changed since that tweet or that post that happened on Sunday night. And it also caused a lot of confusion because he talked about this crypto strategic reserve without mentioning Bitcoin or Ethereum, which got some people very confused. And then like an hour or two later, Trump followed up with another post saying and obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I was looking at, and I'll pull it up here, the Arkham intelligence report for what Arkham thinks that the US government is sort of kind of holding on to. And we have just under 200,000 Bitcoin here that they're tracking. But looking at their portfolio, I don't actually see any of those on here. I don't see XRP on here. I don't see Solana on here. I don't see Cardano on here. So what was he talking about? I legitimately don't know.
It's hard to imagine that he sent off that tweet, honestly.
Yeah.
So which junior staffer, which intern, which child, which Trump kid sent it off? And then what was the damage, for the collateral damage, and what was the walking back that the professionals had to do, And then like you have pointed out in the show notes as well. And then he retruthed, and obviously BTC and ETH as other valuable cryptocurrencies will be the heart of the reserve. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Love Bitcoin.
I forgot to mention.
I love Ethereum.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Have fun with your Bitcoin.
Love the Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's super interesting to see. It really does show, I think, he called it by name in his tweet, right? He called it a crypto strategic reserve, and that's not what we got. So it's just interesting to see how quickly things changed this week between kind of Sunday and yesterday, Thursday, with what these proposed plans were. It does sound like, I think I kind of agree, Sean. It sounds like it was maybe some staffer that posted this, and then David Sachs and some of the people in kind of the Bitcoin space that have been kind of helping to advise on this were whoa. And then, there was some changes made to adjust for that, especially from the backlash from everybody in crypto. Kind of, there was so many complaints in the past week on how, the US shouldn't be buying up. There was one camp of people that were really excited that the US was going to pump their bags on certain, US based coins. Right after this tweet went out, XRP and all these other coins went up a lot in value, right? Because they were anticipating the US buying them. And then that didn't happen. So, we kind of just we got what was originally promised, I guess, which is the fact that the US just won't be selling anything. They're just going to be holding on to it in a strategic sort of way. But just pretty interesting to see how much of a kind of shift that there has been in this past week on, what was kind of originally sort of, I guess, promised on Sunday. versus what was actually executed on Thursday.
I would imagine anyone who had Bitcoin seized unrightfully from them, from the government for whatever reason, is probably not getting that back. You know, like when like weed was legalized, for instance, people that were in jail, you know, got to leave. I imagine you're probably not getting your Bitcoin back.
That's a really good point. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. Maybe it was a month or two ago now. There was like some ruling, and I think it's still happening in the courts. Like it's still being decided because these bankruptcy cases, you know, for a lot of these crypto exchanges, you know, like look at Mt. Gox, right? Like that still hasn't been distributed to everybody yet. And that's been like over 10 years. So it could be in the future, you know, that some court decides that yes, in fact, this Bitcoin that was seized does actually need to be returned to, you know, the users. Like that could happen, I guess. If that does happen, I guess maybe we'll see some more challenges from the US on saying like, no, well, maybe we'll pay you in kind with it or something like that. I guess we'll have to see. That would be certainly a controversial kind of story, because so far, you know, the big point that they've been making with this is that like the fact that they're holding on to it is not costing the US taxpayers anything. But if something like that were to come about, it could, right? So I guess we'll have to see. That's, I guess, your new FUD to think about.
Add it to my list
on this strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, I could really see them pulling like a Celsius and saying it's not going to be in kind. It's going to be the dollar value of whenever it was seized.
Yeah, when it was at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We will see. But yeah, that's, I guess, something to keep note of. I guess once they do an audit, maybe that'll be part of the audit. Maybe they'll have like a basket of like, oh no, we're pretty confident that these are like really truly ours. And then maybe there'll be this other basket of like, hey, we need to kind of keep these aside just in case, you know, there's a ruling that says that we need to give these back or something like that. So yeah, we'll wait and see. The White House Crypto Summit is happening today. A lot of people were expecting this news to drop today, the reserve news. And a lot of people were also expecting there to be some announcements to changes in capital gains, but it seems like that is also not happening today based on some sources. So will we see any news today? My guess is probably not, but what do you guys think?
I think the big news was yesterday with this Bitcoin reserve.
Yeah, they seemed like they were pretty eager to get that out and didn't want to wait another day and just announced it last night. So yeah, I agree. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens after today. If anything new comes out, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. Good to see Michael Saylor everywhere.
Yep. The US now has more Bitcoin than... did they have more Bitcoin than Strategy at this point? BTC in the US, how much does Strategy have? Got to open up the Saylor tracker.
Yeah.
I think MicroStrategy has more.
That sounds right.
Yeah. They have 400.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so close to 500. Dang. They have more than the most powerful country in the world. That's crazy.
You know, we've all had 16 years to develop our own strategic Bitcoin reserves, and now the US is getting into it. So
yeah,
everyone had their chance. Saylor's been stacking for years.
That's right.
He only really started stacking in 2020.
Yeah.
Saylor?
Yeah. But hey, that's, 5 years. 5 years of dollar cost averaging. Certainly worked out for him.
Yeah. Honestly, like, even though I have no idea why the price of Bitcoin is so low right now with this amazingly bullish news, it's what, 15 to 20% off the highs? It's just a better opportunity for people to use that information. If people are confused by this or they don't get it, maybe they're just like not reading or they're getting the wrong sources or something, because it's incredible news.
It really is incredible news.
Stack the sats while they're low.
I really think that it is just the fact that like a lot of people were pricing in the fact that the US was going to buy more.
Yeah.
And that, was never really promised by the administration ever. It was just kind of some narrative that started, getting tossed around on crypto Twitter.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's the right balance nor the right time to do that. I love how they worded it here in a neutral way for the taxpayer.
Yep. Pragmatic, not jumping to, rush into things. Just kind of what Bitcoiners, how Bitcoiners are, right? Bitcoiners over crypto people. So yeah.
True.
Let's see. Next week, we have a really big leather lounge. Sean, I'm gonna throw it over to you to talk about that. 'Cause
Sure,
it's a
yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, Jason Meyer. I reached out to him a while ago just to see what he's been up to because Jason Meyer is the author of The Progressive's Case for Bitcoin. And about a year and a half ago, he published the book and he was doing the media circuits, doing a lot of the interviews. I know he was on What Bitcoin Did. And he's been kind of quiet, so I just checked in and to ask if he would want to come on the show. And, he's a full-time teacher. And he took a sabbatical. He took a year off just to do all the interviews and kind of, soak up this time in his life when he's, published a book. It's a really big deal. But now he's back in the classroom like he used to be. So I'm really curious to check in with him, hear what he's been up to, and hear his thoughts about just the current administration and to see how many people around him he's orange pilled. And because I know the book was a great tool for a lot of people. The tool that you could the book that you can pass to family, right? My family got so sick of me talking about Bitcoin several years ago. So I'm like, here's a book for you. You can hear it from someone else. So yeah, I'm excited to catch up with Jason. Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, as always.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun show. I'm sure. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of really good nuggets from Jason. That's going to be a very valuable show probably to pay attention to. So
it's
looking
fun.
forward to
When
it.
I first kind of was going down the rabbit hole, I kind of I wanted a more well-rounded perspective, and his name came up, and so I've heard of him years ago, which is pretty cool that we're going to get to talk to him next week. I think it's just always good to get different perspectives because there is sometimes a very narrow-minded perspective of Bitcoiners. So I love that.
Kate, on Tuesday, we also talked about in the Leather Lounge Book Club time toward the end of the show, we were talking about Nick Bhatia's book, Layered Money. That was my favorite Bitcoin book back in the day, but he has a new one coming out. I've got my eyes on. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but yeah, Nick Bhatia, he's a professor at USC and
nice.
He does great Bitcoin content, and that book was just perfect.
That's awesome. One of my favorite Bitcoin books is actually not even about Bitcoin. I don't know if you've heard of Jeff Booth. He's a Canadian, and yeah, he's all about technology as deflation, and that was very eye-opening for me. So
yeah, The Price of Tomorrow, right?
yeah, exactly. Yep,
yeah.
That was a great one.
I've heard Jeff Booth on a bunch of podcasts over the years. He's always really good.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Really good speaker.
He's also great to fall asleep to. If he's on a podcast, his voice is always so low.
Yeah.
So chill. Dude, the stuff you're saying is so crazy and mind-blowing, but your voice is so chill.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, a lot to look forward to next week. I think we have some announcements coming out for a few Trust Machines products, so stay tuned there. And yeah, we will see y'all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.